So if you have a long list of these non-court worthy issues, maybe nutrition, maybe just different parenting styles, this is what concierge divorce is all about. This is going to the mediator. This is going to collaborative divorce. This is getting attorneys who can work on these micro level issues and really, really help you and help your family. But if you go to court on these issues, you might not get the type of service you were expecting. Welcome back to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. This is Corey Shapiro. The goal of this podcast is to help you slow down a little bit before you make some decisions that really impact your life, your children's lives, really negatively. That's what we're doing in this podcast. And our episode today is to talk about the courtroom and how people believe the courtroom's going to save them, the judge is going to save them. And I want to talk today about how that might be a mirage. The big picture here is the court's overburdened. They are busy. They deal with high-level issues. Think of it like an emergency room. They're not dealing with small little issues that are painful to you, but objectively not so painful to the court. And that's the big shift in your thinking. Some definitions to think about is the difference between what I'm going to call a concierge divorce, which is sort of like concierge medicine, where the doctor's on call, gives you a lot of time, wants to deal with all of your issues, even preventative, and goes into detail on everything in a way that makes you feel valued and cared for. Okay, that's concierge medicine, and that's sort of concierge divorce. What we have in concierge divorce is mediation. This is where people hire usually an attorney, doesn't have to be, and you're outside of court, and you're trying to work on your issues. And of course, mediation is for people who have some good faith, not all good faith, but a lot of good faith and a lot of transparency. Because in mediation, you don't have any of the court powers to order anything, to get documents, or to turn over any money or anything you need. That's mediation. Another concierge service is collaborative divorce, where you have attorneys who've realized that the court system's really not designed for divorces, and most people can benefit from going to professionals, not only attorneys who are collaboratively trained, but therapists and child experts and financial experts, and they all work together in a team approach. So you have a team approach, like around this table, a team can be done virtually, and everyone's working to move you forward in a family-first way. Okay, that's collaborative divorce. That's the tools of a concierge divorce. Also, you could have just traditional negotiations outside of court with more collaboratively or cooperatively minded attorneys. So that's concierge divorce. But then you also have litigators. And they're out there. They're lurking out there. And litigators are a term that I think of as someone who's like in big law, fighting big companies, and they're doing these multi-year battles and making a lot of money and causing, these big, companies, they're just fighting each other. That's what I think of litigators. But there's also divorce attorneys who are divorce litigators. And what they do is basically model after those type of attorneys. But the problem is you're not a big corporation. You're just a family. And when they beat up the other side, what you're doing is you're really maybe beating up yourself or your children because everything sort of has blowback. That's why you have to be so careful of what you're doing, especially if you have children. Now, again, if you don't have children, it might not necessarily apply. And if you two just want to go after each other, in court, that's up to you. That's a personal decision. I'm here focused on helping you really protect yourself and really your children and their future as well in your co-parenting life. All right, so let me give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. And what I want you to think about is you have court-worthy issues versus non-court-worthy issues. And a good attorney who you find to be a trusted advisor is going to explain these differences to you. So, for example, a court-worthy issue for me is something where it just seems unjust. So sometimes what I see early in the case, and a lot of problems happen early in the case because, again, emotions are high and everyone's reactive, and there's sometimes a lot of pre-divorce planning. So what I see is this sort of path, and it happens often, is you first see maybe a cancellation of health insurance. If someone, had health insurance for the family, so they cancel your health insurance if you're the dependent spouse. Then they may cut your credit card. Okay, so now you're like, okay, this doesn't seem nice. And then what you see is sometimes they change. If they've always deposited their income into a joint account, now they funnel only a certain amount. And if you dig a little deeper, what you also will find is they change beneficiaries. Yeah, so on all those accounts where you were the beneficiary because you were the spouse, you're no longer the beneficiary. But you don't really know this. You have to do some digging to figure all this out. If that's what's happening to you, that's not mediation. That's not collaborative divorce. Those are court-worthy issues. And please don't stand by and let someone bully you like that. That's what you need, an attorney who's using a certain amount of aggression to go to court to expose these bad acts. Okay, now that's court-worthy. And I'm all for going to court on those issues. But you have a whole other pile of issues, which are important, but they're not important necessarily for the court, or they're low importance to the court. So it's almost like going to the emergency room and, you have, you just, maybe pricked your finger and it's painful, but that's not a gunshot. So you're going to be waiting there maybe for hours. And if they have other important issues they're dealing with. And that's why, obviously, in medicine, they've dealt with urgent care because they don't want you to come to the emergency room. So let me give you some examples of non-court-worthy issues. There's such different parenting styles. And that's what a lot of the fight's all about. So, for example, let's say in your home, you wanted to be vegetarian. And now in co-parenting, the other parent's giving the kids meat. I mean, that's problematic. But it's not anything really the court's going to get involved with if they're dealing with these more serious issues. And that's what you have to understand. There's so many things like that. It could be an issue of which summer camp is best for the kids. Generally, the court's going to say whatever you did last year. They're not looking for changes. They're trying to give simple solutions to start things off. So if you have a long list of these non-court-worthy issues, maybe nutrition, maybe just different parenting styles, this is what concierge divorce is all about. This is going to the mediator. This is going to collaborative divorce. This is getting attorneys who can work on these micro-level issues and really, really help you and help your family. But if you go to court on these issues, you might not get the type of service you were expecting. Okay, that's the problem. And then you sort of become disillusioned because you just spent all this time and money going to court, and really you should have been in more of a non-court structure. So let me give you my paraphrase. The court is a tool. It's just not a therapist. That's what I want you to think of the court. The court's a tool. It's not a therapist. Let me give you some action steps. I want you to think of two lists: court-worthy issues and not court-worthy issues, and write them down. If you put down on the list court-worthy issues and you show it to your friend or your therapist or your attorney, and it's not, the other people are sort of outraged by it, that might be a low priority issue for the court. And then hopefully, as a first attempt, you might want to try negotiation, mediation, collaborative divorce before things go crazy, before you spend so much time, money, energy, emotion on a divorce that may turn out to be derailed. Okay. And let me just give you some straight talk here with my lawyer hat. I would say that I also think this is dependent on where you live, because in big cities like New York, where the court is really burdened and they have thousands of cases, they don't give you necessarily a lot of time. But I've done some cases outside the city, and I've realized that they don't have so many cases and they give you more time. they're still not your therapist, but they spend a little bit more time with you on these lower priority issues. They're still going to want you to resolve it outside of court through, mediation and collaborative divorce, but they may have a little bit more time to work with you. So if you are in one of those areas where it's a little bit less busy, you might have a better chance for the court to deal with these non-court worthy issues in a way that may be satisfactory. But if you're in a busier time or even in a less busy place and the court just has a higher priority case, just think about this. The court's a tool. It's not a therapist. This is not easy stuff going against natural patterns when we are activated to slow things down. And that's why we keep on focusing on this issue. Just to slow things down, just to pause, just to take a break. And I believe you can do this. I know you can. And you get through this divorce, even if you don't believe it yourself. I'm Corey Shapiro. Thanks for listening.
This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.